And we're back. Greetings, everyone. This is Lucian Vâlsan, broadcasting from Cluj-Napoca, Transylvania. As always, alongside with me is Herr Jon Gunnarsson, broadcasting from Deutschland, and our producer, James Huff, broadcasting from the US. Greetings, Jose Gunnarsson.
Greetings. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing fine, except for the fact that I'm melting because it's extremely hot again. But other than that, I'm doing fine.
Yeah, I'm also sort of melting. Over here it's like 35 degrees and yeah, that's just far too much.
Yeah, I mean, in the room I'm standing now, they're like 28, but outside they're still over 30, and it's hard to breathe. And I kind of don't like that. Although by the end of this show, things will definitely improve as the night settles in.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not quite that hot now, but like in the around noon and the afternoon, it was like 35 degrees, like almost body temperature.
Yeah, during the day it went even further than that in here. You're actually quite privileged there. It's even when the summer is extremely hot, it's still not that hot in your area. In here, it's killing us. Although it's still better than in Greece, where not just the economy but the weather is also extremely hot. So yeah, everything's melting these days in Greece. Okay, okay. Well, we have a longish news section, most of it from the silly place, but you know it's been quite a slow week, actually slow weeks, the last two, and yeah, but despite that, our philosophical opponents are still able to produce silly nonsense for us to cover and to continue having this show. So yeah, without further ado, I guess I'm gonna just start. The first one is from the Telegraph. Air conditioning in your office is sexist. True story. Quote, I'm freezing cold as I write this article at my desk. I'm wrapped up in a jumper with my legs crossed under me to keep warm, and my sleeves are pulled as far down as they go. My two female colleagues are sitting opposite me wearing their jackets, and there's a stack of emergency desk jumpers in case things get worse. The men around us are all pretty much jacket-free. In fact, most of them have shirt sleeves rolled up and religiously maintain that the temperature is fine. Welcome to office life, where women battle daily with the air conditioning and men have no idea there's even a problem. But there is, and it's a sexist one. Men toil in their dream temperatures whilst women are left to shiver, or in my case, wrap themselves in a weird grey pancho blanket scarf. It's really about time we had this conversation. There must be thousands, dare I say millions, of women out there having these exact AC office wars. In modern offices, most climate control systems are based on the resting metabolic rate of 40-year-old men, which runs up to 30% faster than a woman's. So while men are comfortable in the workplace, the majority of women would need conditions to be nearly 4 degrees warmer, which explains why we're always so cold. Lead author Dr. Boris Kingma from Maastricht University Medical Center in the Netherlands said, quote, the main message is that in the current standards, the value for the heat load of a building is based on an average male. This overestimates the metabolic rate of women on average by 20 to 30%. We don't recommend specific range of room temperatures. Instead, we point out how metabolic rate differs between males and females and how important it could be to take this into account when defining indoor climate standards. Offices around the UK, take note, please. But in case you're still doubting their sexism of AC units, there's more. In 1998, researchers at the University of Utah found that though women had higher core temperatures than men, their hands were consistently colder. While men registered an average hand of temperature of, I don't know how much that is in Celsius, the mean hand temperature for women was just 3 degrees lower. That's a hell of a lot colder, and scientists say it's down to the size differences between men and women. Women typically have more body fat than men, boobs for one, and though the fat helps keep the heat in, it isn't great at generating heat, unlike muscle, which men generally have more of. It also helps to explain why some women are probably reading this article thinking, what are you on about? I love air conditioning and I'm never cold. Well, that's probably because you have a similar body composition to a man, so congratulations to you on escaping this daily temperature war. The rest of us aren't so lucky. It might sound like it isn't that big of a deal, but when you sit at your desk freezing every day with numb fingers trying to type out thousands of words, it can be incredibly frustrating. In summer, it's even worse. If you're a woman in the middle of AC wars, you can't just put on a summer dress, sun tights, like the lucky women who work in AC-less offices, because you know you'll be colder than ever. Cold temperatures can also cause physiological effects such as thicker blood, increasing blood pressure, and tightening of the airways. If people are already vulnerable to illness or have chronic conditions, this can be dangerous. But cold staff are also likely to make more errors when they work and be less productive. A 2004 study found that when the office temperature jumped from 68 to 77 degrees in Fahrenheit, or 20 to 25 degrees in normal temperature like the rest of the planet, typing errors fell by 44% and typing output jumped 150%. Alan Hedge, professor at Cornell's Human Factors and Ergonomics Laboratory, who carried out the study, said, quote, "Temperature is certainly a key variable that can impact performance. The results of our study also suggest raising the temperature to a more comfortable thermal zone and saves employees about $2 per worker per hour." It's not if that's not an incentive for employers to finally sort out the AC problem once and for all, I don't know what is. 3, 2, 1. That's
so I'm confused, Lucian, because in my study of gender and feminist theory, I got the impression that gender is a social construct, but here they're telling us that it actually influences how hot your body is and what temperatures are comfortable for you.
Bio-truths aren't real shit, Lord.
No, sorry, I can't treat this with the dignity of speaking seriously about it. I mean, first time I saw this story, I was like, this has to be bait. Please be bait. No, this can't be real. And then I saw it on Lesabel, and I said, okay, Lesabel is excused for printing such garbage. And then I saw the story in another place, and then I saw the author of this article on TV being very serious about it, and I was like, really? I mean, there actually are people there who think there's a sexist conspiracy? And no, sorry.
Well, she doesn't say anything about a conspiracy. She just says that it's adjusted to the temperatures that men find comfortable, and those don't work for women. So
She doesn't say in this article. She said on TV. She essentially said that it's because of the patriarchal arrangement of the companies or something like that, which is essentially a conspiracy because patriarchy is pretty much. I mean, it is a conspiracy theory. the way our philosophical opponents define it, it's definitely a conspiracy theory.
I don't think it's a theory at all. It's just a sort of vague cloud of things that could be ascribed to the patriarchy. It doesn't make any sort of testable predictions, so I don't think it's a theory.
Yeah, in the strict sense of the word theory, you're absolutely correct, yes. But, I mean, I don't understand that the Telegraph has been competing in the last month to print a lot of garbage, because the next one will also be from the Telegraph, and it's more garbage. I mean, what happened to the Telegraph? It used to be a respectable publication.
I don't know. I don't really share your opinion of this article. Like, I think it's very hyperbolic and over the top, calling it sexism and so on. But I don't know. It might actually be a genuine problem. I've never actually worked in an office with air conditioning, because that's sort of a rare thing in Germany.
Mm.
So I don't know whether they are generally adjusted too low for women's comfort. So that could be a problem. I don't know, but
So I take it actually telling these individuals. I take it actually telling these individuals to put on more clothes to stay warmer is actually a form of victim blaming.
Yeah, it's also slut shaming, of course.
Oh,
because you're forcing women to actually put on more clothing.
Oh man.
Now, I have worked in AC offices and never heard of such an issue. Now, admittedly, I've worked in places where there was no dress code, so I don't know, maybe individuals, according to this article, most of them women would just adjust that however they pleased, since there was no dress code. But no, I've never seen in the two places that had air conditioning that I worked in, never seen this issue, like at all. Maybe it was entirely invisible to me, probably, although unlikely.
Yeah, because it's your privilege. You don't see it.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, when the air conditioning was too low or too high, she says that in the summers it's even worse. Well, she hasn't seen how summer looks like in this part of the world. But you know what we would do if it was too low, we would just open the bloody window, and if it was too high, you would close the window. Or adjust it if you could. Sometimes you couldn't, but that's a different story. So we would apply that old thing called common sense. Do something about it, and by something about it is don't write on an international newspaper that society needs to solve your problems. I mean, it sounds to me like if there is a problem, it's the kind of not just first world problem, but minuscule, irrelevant, and issue to issue solvable problem. I mean, if you have this problem,
in other words, a feminist problem.
yeah, a feminist problem. I mean, if it really is an issue in your office, which I don't think it is, but let's assume for a second that it is, talk to your direct boss at the Telegraph. It sounds to me like a much more quick solution.
Yeah, it's sort of strange that she's writing this article instead of just like talking to her boss. Like presumably, if they're publishing this article, they don't think this complaint is ridiculous or something like that. And if they think that, well, then they just like turn up the heat 2 degrees or something like that.
Or they think it's ridiculous, but wait, it's clickbaity enough, so yeah, why not?
Maybe. Maybe that's probably the most likely explanation.
Yeah, and I asked rhetorically a few minutes ago what happened to the Telegraph, because the next piece also comes from the Telegraph. It's also a similar
it's a really good one.
It's similar type of garbage. Also coming from the Telegraph, I placed a link from Archive because I really don't want to incentivize them to print this thing again. Does fatherhood turn men into misogynists? The social attitudes of men becoming significantly more conservative after the birth of their first child, new research has found. Social scientists discovered that fatherhood brings about a sexist shift in many men who take the opinion that women should fulfill, misspelled fulfill, but anyway, the brunt of housework and care duties. In comparison, while women do adopt a more conservative attitude after the birth of their first child, their shift towards traditional gender values is less severe. The study, carried out by a team of researchers at the University of Queensland in Australia and the Goethe University Frankfurt in Germany, surveyed almost 1,800 people before and after the birth of their first child. They were asked to express how strongly they agreed with various statements using a scale of 1 to 7, where 1 signified strong agreement and 7 signified strong disagreement. The statements covered such issues as breadwinning, social barriers, and maternity leave. When asked if women alone should undertake the stereotypically female roles of housekeeping and infant care, a significant number of both sexes strongly agreed. However, men were notably more supportive of this statement, believing that the household burden should not be equally shared across the sexes. Interestingly, new parents appear to be more likely to endorse women as full-time carers, or I think, yeah, anyway. For example, when asked before the birth of their children, most men and women agreed with the idea that housework and care should be shared equally. However, after the birth, the man level of disagreement with the statement rose. The mean. What the hell? The mean level of disagreement with the statement. Probably they meant the average. Anyway, rose.
That's completely correct. Mean is the short for the arithmetic mean. It's a type of average.
Yeah, I see. The post-birth change in attitudes has been coined the sexist shift by Baxter. The Australian sociologist suggests that the shift is as a direct consequence of how society is constructed. Quote, the way we organize work, parental leave arrangements, public services for children, schools, and social networks create structural barriers, she reports. Baxter summarizes the social conundrum by observing that, quote, this shift means reluctant mothers have less opportunity to renegotiate intensive roles that may not fit them and make it more difficult for enthusiastic fathers to be as involved with their children as might benefit everyone. Maybe, just maybe, individuals are actually making an economic calculus.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably before their parents, they have this sort of idealistic view of sharing things equally and so on. But then after they actually become parents, they realize that this may be not the best thing in practice in all cases. So maybe it's just people just having more practical experience, knowing what actually works. That could be the case. But no, that's sexist.
Yeah, you're sexist peg for suggesting this. I mean, if we are to believe if we are to take the average family, it's usually the father who makes slightly more or sometimes significantly more money than the wife. And one of the parent has to stay at home. And considering that the mother is the one that already has to take some time off to actually give birth to the child, if she makes significantly less, it makes sense for her to stay at home for a while because, his wage could potentially feed two mouths, whilst her wage can't. Is it really that complicated? Is it radical to suggest this?
Yeah, and I also really like how they're completely equating conservatism and misogyny, because obviously they're exactly the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and they're correct in a sense. I mean, conservatism disagrees with the feminist worldview, and any disagreement with the feminist worldview is misogyny. So.
Okay, you've convinced me. I can't argue with that syllogism.
Yeah, but no, in a serious manner, I mean, it's what's astounding is that these two academics who conducted the study, whose legitimacy I may even question, but that's a different story. It never seems to cross their mind some different explanations.
I don't know. I think probably it does cross their mind, but writing that may not be safe for them, so they don't.
Yeah, maybe, but still, I mean, at least stating it to the press. Okay, don't write it in the study that so you can get yourself published. But then after you get yourself published, I mean, at the very least, consider some alternative explanations because I don't like this narrative pushing.
What's also quite possibly the case is that they did state alternative explanations in their study, but the press is just not quoting those, and they're just running with the sort of the feminist compatible type of the explanation.
Okay, yeah, that may indeed be true. I haven't been able to find. I only found the abstract. I didn't even find a place to buy the study, let alone read it for free. So, yeah, maybe somewhere in those many pages there may be some alternative explanation written. It's likely, although unlikely.
Though I do have to defend the Telegraph on one minor point, namely said that they misspelled fulfilled, but actually the way they spell it here was just a single L is the correct British spelling, so that's not a mistake on that part.
Yeah. I was just thinking that a better way to put it was the average as opposed to mean. But yeah, you're definitely correct.
No, I mean with the word fulfill that you said was misspelled.
Oh yeah, well it's 2L at the end of it.
No, it's 1L is the correct British spelling. The American spelling you have 2 L's.
I see. Oh.
But never mind. Yeah, it's just this is just something that really annoys me, is that people just label everything as sexist. Like
The air conditioning is sexist. Breathing is sexist.
Yeah, we have more examples later on with the women's parking spaces are sexist and blah blah blah. Everything is sexist, and
well, everything is some sort of ist these days. I mean, if it's not sexist, it's definitely racist.
yeah, or classist or whatever else,
or ageist or ableist or I'm running out of Tumblr isms, but yeah, there are quite a few of them.
And I wish people would just have a slightly thicker skin. Don't take everything so personally and try to make everything as some sort of huge outrage, because then that sort of devalues all these terms. If everything is sexist and everything is racist, then you don't have, and then you've basically put everyone on the same level. You don't have these terms to actually apply to people who are actually racist and actually sexist.
Yeah, it ruins the original frame of reference.
Well, Sarkeesian said it herself. Everything is sexist, everything is racist, everything is homophobic, and it all has to be pointed up.
And it's just
this is exactly what the feminist mindset is. That everything is. And it has to be in order for them to exist. Feminism must be in perpetual revolution in order for it to exist.
Yeah, because if it takes a break, then there is no more feminism.
Yeah, I guess we've entered the late stages of feminism.
Yeah, pretty much. Although, again, never underestimate. They can always come up with something new, although hopefully they won't. But then again, every time you think they hit the rock bottom, then some new shit comes up. 2 years ago, I could not have imagined Shirtstorm, for instance. I would have never imagined that. So, yeah. And definitely I could not have imagined this air conditioning thing, so who knows, maybe by the next show they'll surprise us again. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Okay, this one is from the New Scientists. Semen has controlling power over female genes and behavior. There's more to semen than sperm. In many animals, seminal fluid alters both the bodies and sometimes even the behavior of females. Human semen, too, triggers changes in the uterus and might have wider effects on women aimed at just one goal. Quote, "It's all about maximizing the chances of males reproducing," says Sarah Robertson of the University of Adelaide in Australia. The effects are most striking in fruit flies. Seminal fluid can make the females eat more, lay more eggs, and be less receptive to other males. Now a team led by Tracy Chapman at the University of East Anglia in Norwich, UK, has found that male fruit flies selectively alter the chemical makeup of their seminal fluid. In the presence of rivals, the males produce more seminal proteins. Quote, "It came as a real surprise," says Chapman. "It's a sophisticated response to the social and sexual situation." Some of the findings were presented at the Society for Molecular Biology and Evolution conference in Vienna, Austria, last week, including the discovery that one of these proteins is a master regulator of genes. Females exposed to it show a wide range of changes in gene expression. Chapman thinks this kind of seminal signaling is widespread in the animal world. The semen of people, pigs, and mice affects the female reproductive tract, and the question is whether it can also produce behavioral responses in female mammals similar to those seen in fruit flies. There have been claims that semen can do everything from making women sleepy after sex to strengthening the emotional bond with their partner. One 2002 study, based on a survey of 300 students, even found that women whose partners did not use condoms scored lower on a measure of depression. If that effect is real, depression in some people might be treatable with artificial semen suppositories. Gordon Gallup of the State University of New York at Albany, who carried out the study, says a PhD student of his has replicated the findings in a survey of 1,000 women, but the results were never published. In flies, seminal proteins can directly affect behavior because they enter the circulatory system, traveling throughout the body or to the brain. Quote, they rapidly get to many places in the female, Chapman says. From the female's perspective, seminal signaling is usually nothing sinister. According to Chapman, it's an efficient way of getting a female's body ready to produce offspring as soon as possible. It's not clear whether any components of human semen get into the bloodstream, but it could be possible, particularly for small molecules like hormones, says Robertson. She has shown that seminal fluid induces expression of a range of genes in the cervix, including one that affects the immune system, ovulation, the receptivity of the uterus lining to an embryo, and even the growth of the embryo itself. As for seminal signaling, she thinks it's more likely to be indirect, with semen causing the cervix to produce molecules that influence the rest of the body. Her team is studying the effect of 3 microRNAs, RNA fragments that affect gene expression, released by the cervix in response to semen. Whatever the mechanism, both Chapman and Robertson say it's plausible that semen could have effects in women well beyond their reproductive tract.
As I was telling you in the backstage before the show, I solely picked up this as a news element for trolling purposes. I don't even care if what they say in that study is true for humans or not. I knew some of the aspects about insects, but I don't care if it's true for humans or not. The fact that it has a semi-legit link and the catchy title is more than enough for trolling purposes. So I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know. Maybe it's true. The one with the depression thing, I've heard about it before, so it may be true. And it wouldn't even surprise me if it were true. But I don't know. I really don't know if it's true or not. And I don't know how to assess in a critical manner.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds plausible, but whether it's actually true, it's of course a different story. But it's kind of funny, and it would be funny to see the reaction of some feminists to that sort of thing.
Yeah, this is the sole reason why I chose this link, and everyone can see it in the.
Well, I can tell you this: the reaction by radical feminist lesbian separatists is going to be a resounding "we told you so." That's what it's going to be. Oh my God, the men are controlling us with their dicks.
On the other hand,
I'm not kidding. That's exactly how it will be.
And if this isn't convincing evidence of the ubiquity of the patriarchy, what else could be?
Exactly. Oh man, you hit the nail on the head with that.
And on the other hand, the rest of the society can say, "Look at those historical cunts." It's clear that this study is true. Yeah. So I mean, especially that depression thing and whatnot. I mean, look at those cunts. It's obvious that it's true. It has to be true. And on the other hand, it says here that it can be, if it turns out to be true, they can be treatable with artificial semen suppositories. And then Lotus Petal says in the chat room, "Butt pill got me pregnant."
Lawsuits from that one. Damn, we went there.
We had to go there. Okay. Okay, now let's try a serious one. Yeah, it comes from your end.
Okay, this is from blick.ch from Switzerland. Plaintiff withdraws suit. Acquittal for Karl Dall. Karl Dall won't have to go back to court. The acquittal from December 2014 is final because journalist Anja Maria Stampfli from Solothurn, aged 44, has decided not to appeal the verdict after all. Otherwise, the German entertainer would have had to appear in front of the Court of Appeal on the 28th of September. Dall is relieved. Quote, "This was the best news in the last 2 years," he told dpa, which is the Deutsche Presseagentur, the German press agency. In December, the District Court of Zurich had acquitted Dall of the charges of rape and attempted assault. The court had been convinced that the evidence was not sufficient for a conviction. It was a not guilty verdict without reservation. Dall had completely denied the accusations from the start. He saw himself the victim of a stalker and her psychological problems. During the investigation against Dall, pop singer Udo Jürgens had also been questioned. The entertainer told the police he had also been stalked by Anja Maria Stampfli for many years. Stampfli wrote a book in which she described her love life with a star. She has a criminal record after harassing people like Hausi Lautenegger and former federal councillor Dolf Ogi. Anja Maria Stampfli, who now lives on a disability pension, had accused him of having raped her in September of 2013 in a hotel room in Zurich. It is not clear yet whether Stampfli will be charged with intent to mislead the administration of justice. So this case has sort of been very fishy from the start, and from the start I never expected anything to come out of these accusations, and I guess it has now been confirmed. I mean, this woman is clearly quite disturbed, and
It says there that she lives on a disability. What kind of disability?
I have no idea, sorry.
I mean, if she walks, then it's probably some mental thing.
I don't know what it is.
But then again, do you have some background about the case? I mean, I don't know who is this Anja Maria Stampfli.
Yeah, I didn't know her before this case, but you know, as it says in the article, she is sort of known to be a sort of a stalker of some of these German pop musicians like Udo Jürgens and so on. So this accusation was from the start very fishy, and I think even in the media, a lot of people were wary of jumping on Dall because this person was just from the start so unreliable. So it's a good thing that he received the sort of not guilty verdict without the sort of the sort of imputation that maybe he's done it after all, we just can't prove it, but that they just said, there's no evidence, get the fuck out.
Well, I guess there is still some sanity in the Swiss courts.
Yep.
And in other courts in Europe, people have been convicted on a he said, she said thing. So, yeah, kudos to the Swiss justice system. Because, it seems very sad, but I've noticed this pattern in some courts, not all of them, but in some courts in Western Europe, it has become judges are quite afraid to tell an accuser to just get the fuck out when they come up with a ridiculous case, obviously bollocks case. They're just afraid to say no. It doesn't happen only in Western Europe. It happened in this country too. A girl came in with a bollocks case, and the judges said, "I'm sorry, I can't convict anyone on this. Get the fuck out." And the press was all over the judge. They doxed the judge and things like that. They eventually calmed down when the girl lost again on the second appeal. But it's sad that we've come to a place where we have to go as far as to report in the press that, oh, look, a judge issued a not guilty verdict. It's very sad.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, we've talked about this problem many times in the past, so we don't have to go into detail on that, but yeah, it's just short news on that.
Okay, going to the next one, coming from Washington Examiner. Now, that's pretty much a global piece of news, and it's from the category Too Little, Too Late. A woman who helped launch the current uproar over sexism in tech is sorry. In 2013, Elisa Shevinsky wrote an article titled, "That's it, I'm finished defending sexism in tech." The article was based on her concerns that a major tech expo would open with a presentation with an app called Tit Stare, which, as the name implied, allowed users to take photos of themselves staring at women's breasts. Shevinsky had been in the tech industry for a decade at that point and said she had put up with sexism all the time. She concluded her article by writing that one of the solutions to the problem was to get more women in tech. Her article received 40,000 views and was shared around the web, helping to spark a debate about the lack of women in the tech industry, a debate with a notable accomplishment of making a grown man, a comet scientist, cry on live TV because the shirt he was wearing offended some. Because of the movement she helped create, Shevinsky has been described as a social justice warrior, a usually derogatory term applied to those who engage in hostile arguments in the name of righting a perceived social injustice. Shevinsky is now sorry for whatever role she played in creating all of this outrage and silliness. She's sorry, she writes in her new book, Lean Out, and she adds that her initial position was flawed. I'm glad to come out in Lean Out and say that my original essay, the one that has been the foundation for people assuming that I am a social justice warrior, was deeply flawed, Shevinsky told the Washington Examiner. I do see sexism and gender issues, a culture war in Silicon Valley, but the knee-jerk responses, recruit more women, attack the men, are not the answer. Shevinsky now thinks there is a more positive solution to the issue of sexism in tech. I think the more important meaning is to actively choose a path that's yours, for women to create their own companies and their own infrastructures, to actively seek out people and create places that are fit for them, Shevinsky said. Women are martyring themselves trying to change the existing culture, and it's miserable for everyone. When asked what she would say to those who would accuse her of telling women to go elsewhere, Shevinsky explained that she wanted a free market approach to reforming the tech industry. I'm not saying that men and women should be separate, but rather that we should control our own destinies, Shevinsky said. Complaining can be effective, but also authoritarian, and often unpleasant for everyone involved. Building something new can be even more impactful, and I believe it's a healthier approach. So let's build companies that don't require gatekeepers to say yes, Shevinsky said. The social justice warrior movement is essentially asking for permission. True entrepreneurship blazes through and does not require buy-in from the existing authorities. Just look at Airbnb and Uber. Wow, didn't see that coming.
Yeah, it's a very positive surprise here. And kudos to her for actually changing her mind and admitting in public that she was wrong.
Yeah, on the thread I found this article, there were individuals who were saying, well, this individual tends to just jump on new bandwagons every once in a while, and now anti-SJW is the de facto position, or apparently not the de facto position, the new apparent bandwagon and the new apparent underdog, and therefore it's more trendy to be on the anti-SJW position. I don't know if that's true or not, but at the end of the day, she's correct on that. I mean, if you don't like the existing milieu, create your own milieu that follows your rules, and if it stands on its own merit, more power to you. If it doesn't, well, maybe there was a reason that the previous milieu was there in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, it's always sort of struck me as disingenuous, this idea that first they complain that there's too few women in tech, and then but the thing is, if you have a company that's 90%, 95% of the employees are male, then it really makes sense to have a sort of a business culture and so on that's adjusted to what most males want. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you then as a woman come in and say, I want to be a part of your club, and then once they let you in, you say that now that I'm part of your club, you have to change all your rules. That's that's just not how it's supposed to work. If you I mean, it's not like the tech industry kept women out. It's just that they have these existing standards and these existing norms that work for them, and if women want to be part of that, they can, and but they don't have the right to just come in and demand that everyone cater to their whims just because they're here now, and it makes a lot more sense to say that we'll have some companies that have more women in them, and then we have sort of conditions that are more suitable to women. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah, a few politically incorrect realizations occurred in the last 5 years by certain feminists. The most spectacular of them was a British feminist, I think, who took it upon herself to create a women-only TV production company. And then she acquired more success with the long Daily Mail article in which she told every one of us how that company went bankrupt because of cat fights. So I don't know. I tend to, and I admit that it is a bias of my own, I tend to think that women-only companies are less likely to survive first 2 years than men-only companies. As such, I don't see much success in establishing women-only companies. But yeah, on the other hand, her position is sound and sensible. I mean, yeah, I don't like how X company in Silicon Valley is set up, so therefore I'm going to set my own company with different rules, different approaches, and yeah, stand on my own merit and prove that my way is also good or better, or maybe it isn't.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be a female exclusive company, but you can have a company with sort of policies that are more attractive to women, and then you will naturally attract more female applicants.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, if she wants to do that, more power to her. I mean, what I enjoyed the most in her words was exactly this part. A more free market approach. Let's just follow our own destinies, and it's a healthier approach. I really like that, and the fact that she says that demanding everything changes a bit authoritarian. Although I think it's a bit more authoritarian, but anyway. And complaining is authoritarian, she says, and that's absolutely true. I mean, no one can deny the inherent authoritarianism that comes from the social justice warriors, spelled with O, warriors.
Huh? Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. The thing is that you want diversity. That's exactly what you get on the market. You don't. On the market, you don't need to convince 51% people to do something. No, you can just start your own company with a couple of people who agree with you, and that's all you need. And then you can run your own show and have different rules. And as long as there's people who want to buy your product, then that's everything is fine. And
in some companies you don't have to convince 51% of the market either. It's enough to convince 0.001% of the company, and it's more than enough to survive of the market. Sorry, and it's more than enough to survive. That's the beauty of the free market.
Yeah, that is the thing. People often talk about minorities getting a short shrift in the market and so on, but that's absolute nonsense. If you're looking at democracy to protect unpopular minorities, that's an insane position. You have majority rule. How is that supposed to protect minorities, unless the minorities are already popular? But in the market, you don't have to ask permission to start your own company. I mean, in our current system, you do, but at least even with the kind of mixed economy we have now in most countries, there is still a lot of freedom in the market, and you can start your own company, and even if you just cater to a small share of the market, you can still be very successful in producing the sort of niche products that a very small minority of people want, but you can still be successful doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking of companies that produce and sell items that are bought generally by metal fans in Southern Europe, not Southern Eastern Europe, but Southern Europe. The amount of people that are metalheads in Southern Italy, for instance, is probably like 5,000 in the entire Southern Italy. And things like that. I mean, they're a very, very tiny minority, and yet these companies can afford to have 20, 30 employees and paid all of them quite decently and whatnot. So that's the beauty. And even in these kinds of, as you said, mixed economies, you can still be very successful or moderately successful without convincing a significant portion of the populace to agree with you or whatnot. So yeah, kudos to the author of the book Lean Out. I'm not going to buy her book, but at least kudos to her to to stand up and put some alternative narrative to the all-encompassing Lean In put forth by, what was her name? She had a Jewish name, Sandberg, something like that. The one who wrote Lean In. Anyway, that woman, the one who said that we should ban bossy. Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Okay, this one is from the University of Hohenheim. Extroverted and power hungry. Women bosses are less agreeable than their male colleagues. Quote, contrary to prevailing assumptions, women in leadership roles are not a gain for companies when it comes to communication and a softer style of leadership, says Professor Marion Büttgen, who holds the chair for business leadership at the University of Hohenheim. Together with Christian May of the German Graduate School of Management and Law in Heilbronn, she supervised the study and analyzed its data. The expert goes one step farther in her assessment. Women in leadership roles were even less agreeable than men. Quote, the study has shown that women in positions of power tend to push through their ideas at all costs, even if that means breaking off fights with colleagues. 500 people in leading positions from all over Germany participated, including 200 women. The survey was conducted via online questionnaires between September and November of 2014. Of course, not all female leaders had narcissistic, ruthless, and male character traits, Professor Büttgen emphasizes. Quote, but these traits seem to be very useful when aiming for the top, assuming that these women do want to embark on this difficult journey. However, many women do not seem to be ready for that. One reason, women often need to make greater sacrifices than men, especially when it comes to families. While men in leadership roles were able to still have a family, women often choose or were forced to refrain from having their own family. Moreover, female leaders are less likely than their male colleagues to be married or to have children. We can see this clearly with the tenure track, Professor Büttgen explains. The road to a professorship is very long and arduous. You have to prevail over many competitors and prove that you have the greater endurance. And all of that during a time period in which women typically have children. Often this means that women have to decide between children and a career. Quote, I see this as one of the reasons why many women decide against a leadership career. And there's 2 more paragraphs, but these are talking about another study, so that's all I'm going to read from this. So...
sounds like something that I read before. I think it was on an article by Mike Buchanan, who also said that essentially employees tend to prefer male bosses over female bosses because they're more agreeable.
Oh, no, this is not it's not asking employees about their superiors, but the survey of the superiors themselves.
Yeah, I understand, but I know the idea that women in leadership position may be less agreeable than the prevailing wisdom would want us to believe. I think I've read this idea before. I don't know if it was Mike Buchanan or someone else at AVFM. But yeah, I can't say that it surprises me too much. Although the difference is indeed a bit striking. I mean, I would have expected to be closer to to similar patterns, because being in a leadership position tends to attract a certain type of personality. Now, that certain type of personality tends to be more often than not held by a man, but sometimes women hold that type of personality too, and thus end up in leadership position. So, yeah, it kind of surprises me a little bit. Other than that, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, it was also interesting that how she's sort of apologizing for these results, that of course not all women and so on, and women often need to make greater sacrifices than men and so on. So that there's also a couple of days ago an interview with her in, I think it was Spiegel, I'm not sure, where she goes into a bit more depth, and yeah, she seems to hold sort of all the standard feminist assumptions, and when her data goes against that, she just tries to make all the possible excuses for that she can, and saying that things like, of course, in the general population, women, of course, still have these better character traits and so on, and these horrible male character traits, they are just found in women in leadership positions, not in the general population and so on. So, yeah.
Which again may be at least in part true. I mean, we know that there is a certain type of personality needed in order to be, I don't know, the CEO of Volkswagen, for instance. So
yeah, that's certainly true.
So that may be indeed at least in part true. But on the other hand, you're correct. It's a bit disgusting the way the researchers try to weasel out of the obvious data. I mean, on the other hand, it's probably a good thing. I mean, as opposed to the previous study that we read, where the researchers didn't rush to find alternative explanations and whatnot. So on the other hand, maybe that's a good thing overall.
Also interesting thing from that interview, which I've not read, is that that the interviewer in that interview says that that these results of men and women in leadership positions behaving similarly are a problem for people who oppose women's quotas, which I just found really funny, how they everything. Every bit of data is just a support for their ideology, no matter whether it's supporting or not. You can just always twist it around, and it's really funny how they do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because all the time the refrain was that we need more women in leadership positions because they are so much nicer and they all have these great soft skills and so on, and that they're not so confrontational as men and so on, and that because of this it would be good to have more women in leadership positions. Then it turns out women in leadership positions don't actually have these the characteristics, and then they say that's still support for gender quotas.
Yeah, which pretty much shows that the support has always been ideological and not data driven. This kind of thing reminds me of a poll made by an economics think tank in Britain, in which they they first proved that if you put a 75% tax rate as opposed to a 30% tax rate, the 75% tax rate will yield less revenue for the government. And then they polled the members of the three major parties in Britain. Then the question was, if you knew that you would get less revenue if in a 75% tax rate, would you still vote for it? And 95% of the conservatives said no, roughly 70% of the liberal Democrats said no, and a surprising or not so surprising 90% of the Labour said yes, they would vote it anyway, just to have the 75% tax rate. So it's the same thing here. It will be good for companies because yada yada yada, and then it turns out that all of those reasons are bollocks. And then for a rational person that was gullible enough to support these kinds of quotas, In the past, they might say, well, then if that is not true, then maybe the quotas aren't necessarily a good idea. But for the ideologue, well, we should still support it just so we have more women because that's diversity. But men and women are the same, but that's diversity. Oh, wait. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Yeah, and on a general level of reinterpreting everything as support for your ideology, we'll move on to a Daily Mail article.
Oh, yeah.
Ladies-only parking spaces introduced at Frankfurt Airport that are bigger, nicer, and close to the terminals spark sexism row in Germany. Frankfurt Airport has caused controversy after it painted a section of its car park pink and designated it entirely for the use of women. Worse still for people striving for equality, the ladies' parking section has bigger parking bays, insinuating they require less skill to maneuver their vehicles safely into the parking spot. According to airport authorities, the new bays offer, quote, quick, safe, and convenient from your parking to the terminal. And if you think this sentence doesn't make any sense, you're correct. Airport officials said the bays are bigger, nicer, and close to the terminals. They added, this is our exclusive parking offer at Frankfurt Airport for women only, with new and specially designed areas which are color-coded and easy to find. Women hoping to avail of the new parking zones have to find their way to the pink areas, which are located in several areas. According to the airport's website, forward-planning women can avail of early bird online rates and save more than 50% on the cost of their parking. Geraldine Herbert, editor of Wheels for Women magazine, told The Local that many areas in Germany have a requirement that 30% of parking spaces are allocated exclusively for women. She said, it's very patronizing for women to be singled out in this way. All this does is reinforce the stereotypes that women are bad at parking. Ms. Herbert said that all parking spaces needed to be increased in size to accommodate larger modern vehicles. She branded the women-only spots as sexist parking spaces. Campaigners claim that women-only parking spots enable the introduction of better security and CCTV systems to help lady drivers feel safer. The German Automobile Association added, we believe that in car parks, every parking space should be a quote-unquote women's parking space. This means making sure every space in several is well lit, avoiding blind spots and corners, and installing sufficient electronic security systems. Most importantly, video surveillance and emergency call systems. Yeah.
Question, is the airport entirely private or taxpayer funded?
I actually don't know.
Because, you know, if it's private, it's just funny. If it's not private, I actually do have a problem. Because, you know, the state isn't allowed to do these kinds of discriminations. And
Oh, but it is allowed. There have been suits about that, and the Constitutional Court declared that this is not a case of sex discrimination.
Because potato.
Because potato, essentially, because like it doesn't make any sort of sense. Like the rationale behind that is that women are more likely to be victims of sexual assault and rape, and therefore they should have access to parking in well-lit areas where there's in calling distance of personnel and so on. Problem with that is that the idea that these sorts of attacks occur more often in parking garages is just wrong. It's just statistically
incorrect.
You're not particularly likely to be attacked there.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yep, I was agreeing. Yep, it's. I
Yeah.
mean, if anything, it's men who are the most victims of any form of street violence, including being attacked in parking lots.
Yeah, that's the second point, is that they're just looking at this particular category of violent crime, which is sexual assault and rape, and yeah, women are the majority of the victims, but why do you single out this particular category? Why not just look at all violent crime? And then you find that men are actually more likely to be victims. It just doesn't make sense from start to finish.
And again, if it is a private airport, well, their money, their business. But if it's state, I still think it's immoral, regardless of what the Constitutional Court of Germany says. Taxpayers' money should not be used for this. But on the other hand, the arguments that come from the opponents of this are quite bad arguments. I mean, it's patronizing for women because it reinforced the stereotype that women are bad at parking. Well, most women are bad at parking. Sorry, it's just true. It's not a conspiracy. It's not and if it's patronizing, it's probably patronizing by nature. More often than not, it's a woman who parks like crap. It's just true. Whether that can be corrected or not, I don't know. Maybe it can, but for the time being, it kind of is the truth. I mean, I traveled by car across Europe, and my experience kind of reflects that the rule kind of applies across this continent.
Yeah, it's also been my experience. Well, I have to say that I personally am pretty bad at parking, so it's...
Yeah, my uncle sucked at parking, but but as a general rule, women do suck more at parking than men. That doesn't mean that there aren't women who park fantastically and men who suck at parking. There definitely are. But it's a very bad argument against this policy. I mean, yeah, so it reinforces a stereotype which exists there for a reason. It's pretty much like the stereotype that men have a harder voice than women, or women have a softer voice than men. Yeah, sure, there are women without a soft voice and men with softer voices, but the stereotype is there for a reason. It's pretty much like that. I mean,
Or
so
like,
what?
I don't know, maybe the stereotype that women generally prefer slightly higher temperatures. Maybe that.
Yeah, but then again, I mean, if it's a stereotype for a reason, because it kind of applies in most people's experiences. These kinds of differences are noticeable without being a PhD researcher at the Frankfurt University or whatnot. And because of that, I mean, I think it's a bad. I just think it's a bad argument against the policy by the Frankfurt airport. The fact that it's stereotypical, well, so what? I mean, I don't think that's that's a good argument. A good argument would be stop using taxpayers' money for such silly nonsense.
Yeah, and this is the thing that with the way that under this feminist view, you can just argue that anything is sexism. Whenever men and women are treated in any way differently, you can just say it's sexism, even if by any sort of reasonable standards, women are actually being treated better than men in this case, rather than it's patronizing and so on. And of course, even if you do treat men and women equally, you're still often accused of sexism. So it's just everything is sexism, and it's just I'm just so tired of this.
Yeah, and damned if you do, damned if you don't. Oh well, these were all the news that we had, and so we can just live up to our show title, the News Hour. We've been online for 1 hour and 2 minutes, so yeah, these were the silly news that we had. We told you that there was a slow period these days, probably because most of Europe is on vacation already, so it's probably going to...
Or they're just either too hot or too cold to type out any articles.
Yeah, that's a true story too. Although maybe I should hang around more on Lesabel because they all work from home with their cats, so they probably have their preferred temperature adjusted. Yeah, and on this note, because it's a slow period, next show on August 21st, because next week I'll be off the town pretty much most of the week, and I'll be uploading on my channel clips from my trip. I'm going to visit some very nice places in this country, and I'm going to bring clips to everyone. Speaking of my channel, don't forget to subscribe to Freedom Alternative, because I'm a nasty asshole and I'm going to plug that everywhere. And also the next show, should we take next show on egalitarianism?
Yes, indeed. I'm going to do some preparation for the show so that we don't just ramble on like we usually do, sort of like I did a couple of months back when we talked about what was it? Blanking on the name right now.
No, I don't remember. We've been making almost 100 of these, so obviously I don't remember the title of all of them.
Ah, yes, on the episode on tribalism. So.
Or the episode on great men of history.
Yeah. So these I think were some of our best episodes. I think when we actually have some preparation and something to talk about rather than just random news. So I guess next show is going to be fun, and do tune in 2 weeks.
And with that,
take the red pill.
Take the red pill. Goodbye, everyone.